So as mentioned, my name is Adam Charlton and I work in the recruitment department here at Richmond, the American International University in London. And I have with me Dr. Paul Rekret, who's our program director and professor of politics. And obviously today's webinar is for our Masters in International Relations. So we're going to go through what this master's degree can offer you, and why you should study this at Richmond, and what makes Richmond a unique institution here in the UK. Paul will then take you through the programme, the different courses and what it has to offer, and then I'll take you through some practical information around applying, tuition, fees and funding. Before we get into some of the detail, I just wanted to give you a quick update on COVID-19 situation here in the UK and what Richmond has been doing to ensure that our students still have a great experience, even though there are lockdown measures in place. So currently here in the UK, we are in a lockdown, and university teaching is severely restricted. So at present, our students are studying online, but we do hope to have students return for some face-to-face teaching this month, but that will depend on government regulations. For most of last year, we offered a combination of blended and face-to-face teaching, and we had some really positive feedback from our students about that, both in terms of the sort of quality of the online resources and classes available to them, and the attention and support that they were given during those periods. As a small university, we can react quite quickly to any changes, and we've worked really hard to make our campus sort of COVID secure. We've put social distancing measures in place, and if anything, I would say students are probably getting more personal attention or one-on-one support through a lot of the online classes that we've put into place. And obviously, as things develop here in the UK, things are very positive at the moment, and we fully expect to return to face-to-face teaching in September. But as things change and regulations are updated, we will of course pass that information on to you, so you can feel fully informed about joining us this September. I know most of you here are looking at September, but we also have the January start date as well. So some of you that won't end up joining us in September can obviously join us in January 2022. This is also called our spring start. So the MA in International Relations is essentially a great stepping stone for a career in sort of government, diplomacy, policy formation, perhaps working for some sort of think tank or policy organisation. For those of you that are interested in sort of the third sector, charities, humanitarian aid work, or perhaps human rights work, then there's a big focus on that, and you could look to step into that as a career choice. And there's also quite an element devoted to sort of the guns and bombs side of things, or the security services side of things as well. So that's a focus of the course, and you'll sort of see during this presentation that there are different classes that you can take within the master's degree that will set you up and give you sort of more specialist knowledge for an area in an area of studies that you may be interested in for your further career. Here at Richmond, we are an American university, but we are based in London, and as such, all students graduate with both a British degree and an American degree. So that's quite unusual. Here at Richmond, you can get an American master's within 1 year. Often that can take you 2 years if you were to study a master's degree at a US university. As mentioned, we're quite a small university, so at master's level, we probably have about 200 students across five different programs, and some of those programs can be split into other sections as well, but that results in small class sizes. So you're going to be in a class with 20 other students perhaps, and within there might be 12 to 15 different nationalities. So this is what we call a genuinely international environment. Discussions, debates you're having are going to hopefully be more interesting and informative, because you're going to have people from these different backgrounds giving their own opinions and perspectives on the topics that you're discussing. We have a very good graduate employment rate, so that's 93%, and that means that within 6 months of graduating, 93% of our students are in full-time graduate work or further studies. and you're going to have a minimum of 9 hours a week during this master's degree, and you'll see how that's split in a few slides. Every student at Richmond has a personal academic advisor or project supervisor that will be your go-to academic for when you have questions about sort of course structure, about doing an internship, about doing a dissertation, and they'll be sort of there available for you to meet regularly and answer any questions you have around those aspects, academic aspects of the program. And you'll also, as a Richmond graduate, become part of our alumni network. So we have over 15,000 alums from over 140 countries, and this can be a great resource for you to utilize both as a student and then also once you graduate, once you're looking for work. It's a great network for you to sort of tap into when you're looking for jobs or doing research about certain countries or certain aspects of your career that you're interested in. We are based in London. Our campus is in Kensington. I'm going to tell you a bit more about the facility in a few slides. London is consistently voted the world's #1 student city. It's a social, culture and political capital city. And there are lots of places and resources you can go and investigate and utilize outside the classroom that are going to complement what you're learning inside the classroom. And Paul will highlight some of those resources that we use in a few slides as well. I'm now going to hand you over to Paul, who will take you through the academic side of the program. So thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, great. So I think the first thing to say, and I think the thing that sort of culturally underlies our objective with this MA program and the way our department in international studies at Richmond approaches the discipline in general is trying to mix the theoretical and the practical. So for us, that means thinking about the burning sort of issues of the day. It means asking the deep theoretical and philosophical questions that underlie the study of global politics. What is a human right? What are the causes of war? What is peace, which isn't as sort of self-evident as perhaps you might initially think, but also the practical elements of what it actually means to work in that field, whether that's working as a human rights observer on the ground, whether that's intervening in a particular conflict, or whether that's working as a diplomat. And we try and sort of bring that experience into every element of your degree of study, whether that's having diplomats visit the classroom, which is really regular, whether that's visiting a place like the NATO headquarters or learning how human rights monitoring mechanisms work in great detail. So that's something I'll sort of return to, but I think it really gives an idea of how we're thinking about learning and practicing international relations. That includes something I'll come back to, which is our internship program, which we're very proud of, our research community, as well as Adam mentioned earlier, the small classes in which we teach, which means you get to really know us. And in a way, it's not for everyone. You can't sort of anonymously disappear in the back of a large classroom. Your professors know your name, will know you well, and will not only hope that you participate in the class, but also in the wider research community at the university, which I'll also talk about. And perhaps Adam will discuss the way in which our degrees work, which are both American accredited and accredited in the United States, so a dual degree program. So if we can move on to the next slide, Adam. So for starters, this is, as it stands, the structure of the modules or courses that you would take throughout the degree. There are 3 core courses, a course in global poverty and security challenges, which, as I mentioned earlier, is really the sort of about the burning issues that we think are facing the globe today. A course in international relations theory, which is about the sort of fundamental conceptual approaches to the study of global politics. And this is really important because global politics is the kind of thing you study that you can't see. You can't put it in a lab and look at it under a microscope. You can't sort of discuss it or talk about it in a sentence or two. We're talking about the most complex phenomenon you can possibly imagine, which, and at various scales, from communities, cities, local and regional conflicts, to states, nations, continents, and indeed the globe. We're talking about ecological crisis, migration, conflict, global economy, drugs networks, right? A huge complex level of phenomena that we need to build theoretical conceptions in order to understand. So those are the sort of fundamental foundations of the program, along with a course in research methods, which is really about preparing you for your own independent research project to be able to work on your own developed area of expertise, but also because, as I said, we like to mix the theoretical and the practical, and that's the way we're approaching this. Some of those research methods might be much more practical, looking at managing projects, environmental impact assessments, the sort of things you might be doing on the ground in the various fields that you'd probably enter as a graduate. And then you can see a long list of optional courses there, and this is really where you can start to develop that practical expertise, whether a course in diplomacy, in migration, in Middle Eastern politics, conflict studies, or human rights. And let me take that last one as an example. In the course on human rights, you would look at long-standing debates about what a right is, who has a right, what privileges and duties does a right give you? So philosophical debates, but then also the practical elements of writing a human rights report for an NGO like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, for instance, or writing a monitoring report for a UN agency. So again, it's about balancing those two things, and we're trying to do that throughout those optional courses. We also have some new exciting optional courses on counterterrorism and on the study of security, which we'll be rolling out for fall. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming out. Then in your final semester, you would write your own dissertation. So that's managing your own research project from start to finish. You would work with a faculty advisor closely. We do offer, I think, much more faculty sort of oversight and advising than most institutions. And as Adam said, I think that's part of the thing that makes us unique as a quite small liberal arts institution. And you would also have the option to pursue an internship, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But hopefully that gives you a sense of the various structure of the program. The only other thing I'll say before we move on is that you can see that it's a long list of optional courses, and it's up to you to develop your own expertise into the discipline, but also that because we are normally taking about 20 or so students on the program, we can't offer all those courses. You don't want to be the single person in a class on, say, global environmental politics. So as the program leader, I usually get together with students, get to know your interests, and then collectively as a group, we would decide a range of usually about 5 options or so to run. So you still have a lot of choice, and we do find that that works in terms of getting everybody into their preferred options. People tend to be bunched into particular areas: diplomacy, human rights, conflict studies, and a few others. Perhaps we can move on to the next slide, Adam. So I mentioned that internships form a part of the program. This is something we've been doing a long time, and we're quite a sort of leader, I think, in running an accredited internship. So should you choose to do the internship, it counts effectively as a course. And it will help you to develop networks in the field, to experiment with different areas of international relations, to see and develop your own expertise and your own interests, to try things out, build your CV, and you would work with a faculty advisor to identify appropriate internships and with our internship office. We have a lot of organizations that we have been working with for a long time, whether that's charities or NGOs that are actually based at the university, like Professors Without Borders, and the Center for the Analysis of the Radical Right are two major organizations, global organizations, that are actually based at the university. So they're two examples of organizations that we have a lot of students interning with. Professors Without Borders provides access to higher education to parts of the world that might not normally have it, sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia. And CAR, the Center for the Analysis of the Radical Right, looks at advising government and also, for instance, a range of private sector organizations, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on how to respond to the threat of the far right, which I'm sure many of you are aware is a growing one today. Then we have a longer list of other NGOs, charities, diplomatic missions that we've been working with for a long time. You can see a list, a sample at the bottom of the slide there. Club of Three, which is a diplomatic organization that brings thought leaders from countries that might be in conflict together to sort of shape and improve relations between states. Refugee Rights Europe, I think the name speaks for itself. The Global Peace Foundation, which is another diplomatic organization in Washington. So there's a range of different options, and we'll work with you to identify them. We'll prepare you for the process. We will put you in touch with the organization. We can't sit the interview for you, but we will then, once you've, I'm sure, successfully completed interview, we will work with you closely throughout the internship also to make sure that you're getting the kind of skills and experience you really want out of it. And as I said, we want to mix the theoretical and the practical. So at the end of your internship, a faculty advisor will also work with you to write a paper or a report that asks you to reflect on your internship in light of your coursework. So is the real world experience that you had actually reflective of what you learned in your classes? Does it challenge it somehow, or vice versa? So we really want to keep this relationship between theory and practice going throughout your internship experience as well. And we really think this is great. And I'd encourage all of you, any of you that are considering this, to really think seriously about doing an internship, whether through Richmond or elsewhere, because it's such a great experience for the students. If we could go on, Adam. One of the things that is also quite unique and something that I think is special about being a small international university is our ability to have students support and work closely with faculty. And before the tragedy that is COVID, that often meant, for example, that students would have the opportunity to maybe join faculty members as they did in research internationally. So for example, one of my colleagues who was teaching on the MA International Relations would, for 2 years in a row, took a group of students with her as she was conducting research on women's rights and labor in Cuba, and students spent a week or 10 days or so in Cuba. I took a group of students most recently in the last pre-COVID summer to Rome for an international symposium with a group of scholars from around the world studying security, gender rights, other burning issues around global politics. Students might regularly visit NATO headquarters in Brussels, the EU headquarters, or indeed the International Criminal Court. So these aren't sort of part of the curriculum. You don't necessarily have to go on these trips, but we like to sort of post them here just to give you a sense of the kind of opportunities that are available as a member of our research community. Could keep going to the next one, please. The other element of being a member of a small university and a member of our research community is we do hope that you'll participate in the wider research of the university. We have a Center for the Study of the State, Power, and Globalization, as well as the Center for the Analysis of the Radical Right that I mentioned earlier. We hold a range of events. This is one from spring 2019. It's a similar list most years. You can see that in a given semester, we'll have all kinds of events, workshops on the European Union, human rights. These are people coming in from scholars, practitioners from around the world coming in and speaking to students and faculty about their work. The one that I'd really like to point to you, though, is the one at the bottom of the list, which is a presentation on policing the Arab carceral city, and that was by Bruce Stanley and Hattie Field. Bruce Stanley is actually a professor that teaches conflict studies at Richmond, and Hattie Field was a student. And Hattie ended up working as a research assistant for Professor Stanley. They ended up producing this work on security in contemporary Arab cities, and actually ended up publishing that work and presenting it not just at Richmond, but globally. And that's something that is, again, quite typical at Richmond and also quite unique, that students often end up, as research colleagues, end up working with faculty on their work. Currently, a couple students are working with Noga Glucksum, who's studying global peace processes. So those are really opportunities. I mean, again, it's not the kind of thing that's guaranteed you're all going to get a research position with a professor, but rather I think typical of the community and the sort of culture that we have, where we really want and hope that our MA students will become members of a burgeoning research community. And you can see across the slide there the front covers of recent books published by faculty. So there's a lot of exciting research going on energy, the far right, on global ideology and social movements, political theory and philosophy, all kinds of really interesting work that we really hope you get involved with. And we're really keen and looking for students who are motivated to become really members of our research community. That's really one of the things that we're keen on. If we could move on, please. So this is some of the faculty that you might be working with, just to give you a little bit of a sense. So you can see to the left of my image, at the top left, there's Dr. Michael Keating, who's our head of department and writes on global energy development in Africa. Below him is Dr. Eunice Goes, who teaches the international relations and media class. And speaking of theory and practice, she's been writing books on British and European politics and articles, but she's also herself a former journalist, and you can still see her on BBC on various panel programs discussing contemporary issues in national and international politics. Below her is Dr. Candida Purnell, who teaches security and also research methods. Dr. Noga Glucksum teaches human rights and counterterrorism. Dr. Rafał Saborski teaches global environmental politics, and I teach the core course in theories of international relations. There are other faculty members, but at least that introduces you to some of them and a bit of their work. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Adam here, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the university campus and so on. You're muted, Adam.
Yeah, let me just unmute myself. Thanks. Thank you for that, Paul. And guys, just on this slide, I just want to highlight for those of you that aren't so familiar with London, sort of just where exactly we are. So on the left here, you can see obviously the sort of general map of London, Kensington right in the centre here, on High Street Kensington near Hyde Park. And you can see our facility just here on the right. So we've got this building here, which is our space exclusively for master's degree students. So yeah, whether you're on the IR program or the MBA or one of the other masters we offer, you'll have all your classes here in Kensington, in the centre of London. It's a great place to sort of be located from a sort of travel location point of view, and then it's also really close to some really cool cultural icons such as museums, galleries, Kensington Palace, Kensington Gardens, and the students there certainly have sort of lots of fun being based there. I'm afraid that we don't have any accommodation here that the university owns, but we work with a number of housing providers and can help you to find accommodation very near to the campus. And then just some more sort of practical information in terms of sort of start dates and duration. So the program has two start dates, September and January. so that's called fall and spring in American terminology. And I know most of you here have indicated that you're interested in joining us in September, but for those of you that perhaps can't make it, or you have to sort out English tests or for any other reason, you can join us in January 2022. And just one thing to bear in mind is that if you do join us in January, the program is taught over 18 months as opposed to sort of 1 year. And that's essentially because you have the summer in the middle off. If you are interested in part-time study, then please drop us a message in the chat box and we can give you some more information on exactly how that works. To apply, we have an application form on the website. So this is called our direct application form. And you need to complete this, which just asks for sort of some basic personal information. And then you will need to send us copies of the supporting documents you can see on the screen there. So a personal statement, so this should be approximately 500 words. This should detail why you want to study a master's degree in international relations, why you want to study one at Richmond, the American University in London, what sort of skills or academic background you have in international relations, and if you don't have any, that's fine. Maybe you can highlight a bit more about what sparked your sort of passion or interest, or what subject within international relations are you really keen to learn more about and to have a career in. And a little bit about what you'd like to do in the future is always really useful as well. So along with the personal statement, we'd like a copy of your CV, particularly if you've got any sort of relevant work experience, and we'll need to see proof of your bachelor's degree as well. So for those of you that are still at university, you can just send in your transcripts or a transcript of your studies so far. And then in the summer, once you have graduated and you have your degree certificate, you can send us a copy of that then. For those of you that don't speak English as a first language, we will need some sort of proof of your English language ability. This is quite strict because we have to follow the UK government's visa and immigration regulations around student visas. If you have studied a bachelor's degree in English from an English-speaking country, then you might not need to send in a separate English language certificate. But for most of you that don't speak English as a first language and are living abroad, you'll have to do perhaps an IELTS test or a TOEFL test, Pearson English language test. So those are three of the top most popular sort of English language tests that students will take. And again, if you have any questions about that, please just send us a message and I can follow up with you individually. You can see the tuition fees at the bottom of the screen there. So for UK students, it's £9,000, and for international students, £13,250. And we do offer some generous scholarships to help reduce those costs. So for students that have a UK first, or that's a 3.7 on the US scale, you can receive a 20% discount in the fees. And for those of you with the UK 2-1, that's a 3.3 on the US scale, that would be a 15% discount. Now, for those of you with French or Italian or Nigerian or Indian bachelor's degrees and you're not sure, I can tell you what the equivalent would be, but as a general rule, you can see what they are there. Please send us a message and I can let you know that in the chat. And for those of you that are here that are EU students, we have a sort of special scholarship, so a slightly more generous scholarship on the one that you've just seen. This is exclusively for this year only, and it's for EU students. It's a sort of slightly anti-Brexit scholarship. So obviously we want to keep relationship with our European students, and so so we are offering a slightly more generous scholarship. So that it would be a £4,250 discount. And these are available once you achieve a 2-1, the UK equivalent of a 2-1. That's it from our end. I can see that we've had a few questions come into the box here, which is great. So we'll just take a look at those. If you do have questions, please type them in the box. We happily answer anything about the entry requirements, Yeah, course content. So I can see that we've got a question here about the English language for TOEFL. So if you just give me a second, I will I'll let you know what that is. But guys, please do type in other questions you might have. Just bear with me 1 second.
Perhaps while Adam's looking that up, I'd just add, you could see, and we'll come back to it, you can see my email address there. You're always very welcome to email me with further questions about the program, about the university, and then I'm always happy to, if I can't answer them, I can always forward you to somebody who can. The other question that's there, perhaps while you're looking for that, Adam, is how COVID will affect international students starting in the fall. I mean, Adam can probably tell you what the university's official line is, but I would say from my perspective that the university is simply responding to the UK government's regulations, although as far as I understand it, the government is potentially planning to open the university sector, university teaching up more widely from the this spring or beginning of this summer. But of course, this will always be conditional on government regulations.
Yeah, no, that's right. So at the moment, you know, here in the UK, the government expects us to sort of be back to normal in September. Well, actually at the start of this summer, as Paul just said, which means for you guys that are looking to start in September, things will hopefully be sort of back to normal and there won't be any restrictions on teaching or going to campus. But as Paul said, this is a changing situation and we're not sure how things will develop. But for those of you that are applicants, we will keep you fully updated in changes and any regulations that come into force, which would affect how you're studying. Yeah. Guys, do we have other questions that you would like to ask? Just quite something sort of quite common that we'd just like to highlight as well, that we do have a really nice mix of backgrounds as students on this degree programme. So we have students from different sort of fields, so some people from business, some from sort of an international relations background, and others perhaps from, yeah, maybe like a sociology background as well. So no matter your bachelor's degree, you shouldn't feel like this, this programme is restrictive in any way.
Yeah, and just to say, I think we sort of expect that many of you, if not most of you, will come from other backgrounds, academically speaking. Perhaps you have some experience working in a particular field and you've decided to make a slight career change or to upskill. And we really like having people with different experiences and backgrounds in the classroom. It brings a richness to discussions. It means you have different knowledges and experience. And because we're so international, we also really like having such a global group of students in the classroom. When you're studying something like international politics, having people with different experiences of politics, global economy, and so on is really important to us. And I think it really enriches the classroom. And really, our courses are designed to sort of train you in the discipline from the start. You're not expected necessarily to have a background in the field itself.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. So yeah, you can see the email and contact addresses on the screen there. So if you do think of other questions later today, tomorrow, if you'd like to email Paul directly, then you can do so. I've just put the TOEFL scores in the chat there, so you can see them. It's by components, obviously listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and then we have individual scores for those components. I've also just put in a link to the how to apply section on the website. So for any of you, if you click on that link, you'll see further details on the application process and some specific requirements for the different English language tests. And then we've just had another question in here as well, asking about sort of visa support and assistance. So I'll just answer that quickly first. So yeah, every student that's not from the UK essentially, or doesn't have what's called EU settled status, will need a visa to come and study in the UK. We help you to apply for that visa, and you can only apply for that visa sort of with the place you're going to study at. So the first step is to apply to and be accepted into the university. And then at the beginning of summer, so sort of around June time, we'll start preparing the documents you will need to apply for your visa. There's quite a few documents that you'll need, and it can be quite a sort of bureaucratic process. So I'm not going to go into too much detail now. I'll post a link to a useful section of the website which outlines everything you need. But essentially, yes, we will send you a letter that you will then use to book your visa appointment. And then once you have your visa, you're obviously free to come and study in the UK and move over to the UK. For international students that would like to bring their families along as well, you are allowed to do that, and the process is the same. You just obviously have to apply for visas for family members as well, and we can assist you in doing that. So it's fairly common. You know, there's lots of international students that come to the UK every year and bring a family member with them. So yeah, we will work with you to do that. And yeah, first point of call would be the link I'm going to post in the chat for you there, Andrea. Guys, do we have other questions at all? Please do type in anything else you would like to ask. Okay, so question here asking what percentage of applicants are approximately accepted? Mara, essentially at postgraduate level in the UK, anyone who meets our requirements will be offered a place. So we have to be transparent in our entry requirements. So you can see those on the website there, and they are essentially that you need to have a minimum grade of 2.2 in your bachelor's degree or the international equivalent. Students will then be interviewed, and as long as students pass the interview, then they would be offered a place. So then how many students, so then in terms of sort of how many are accepted, essentially everyone who is offered a place can come and study with us. Now, lots of students that apply and are offered places might not come and take up that offer, and that's the sort of difference. That's where this sort of percentage of people who are accepted comes in. And I would say that we probably have, yeah, it's probably around 4 to 1. So that's not so necessarily 4 people accepted, but 4 people that we make offers to, and you maybe have 1 will actually come. So some students might not be able to afford it. They might have other personal or family commitments, which means they can't come this year, or they might decide to go to another university. But the way to think of it more here in the UK is that if you meet the requirements, you'll be offered a place. It's your decision then whether you decide to accept that place or not. I think that's a good way of sort of framing it. Paul, what about the sort of age of the students on the programme?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Again, this really varies. So it's a wide breadth of ages and experiences. So some students will join us having just completed their bachelor's degrees. Other people will have a handful of years of experience working before they join us. And some students will have even several decades of work experience or other experience joining us. We like that breadth of ages. It's also a set of different experiences, and I think it adds to the richness of the classroom. But I would say on average, Adam might have the data, but I'd say on average, our students are in their mid-20s.
Yeah, I would. The average age is certainly sort of 25, 26. Yeah. Guys, other questions, please? I'm just putting in a link to some information. If people do want to sort of get a heads up and read a bit more about the visa process, then they can do so in the in the link I've just posted. Guys, do we have any other questions? If there's no questions, we will look to finish in a few minutes, but please do ask us anything at all that crosses your mind. If you have a specific question about some course content, subjects you can study, topics, then please do ask Paul that now. I'd really recommend utilising this time. Otherwise, we'll be looking to finish in a few minutes, and I will send you through a copy of this presentation as a follow-up, and then you've got our details. And if you do have any other questions, then you can get back to us then. So sorry, it's just taken me a second there. Just a question here about a sort of CV format for the CV. So no, one of the application documents to submit is a copy of your resume or CV. And no, we just want to get a basic idea of what sort of work experience you've got, and it just gives us a bit more information about you. So there's no particular format, just sort of a standard CV resume structure for that. And then there's another question here, Paul. Do we need a bachelor's degree in a particular field to apply? Can we integrate the master with a bachelor's degree in architecture? So Naomi, as I understand it, you're saying you have a bachelor's degree in architecture. Can you study this master's degree even though your bachelor's degree is in architecture? And I think the short answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a student on the degree right now whose background is in photography, for instance, and decided that that was something he'd been working in for a few years, couple years since his completed his undergraduate degree, and decided he really wanted to make a change. So again, it's a really interesting sort of way of moving across degrees. In your case with architecture, it would be about the capacity to think about the built environment, for instance, to think about social space and how that shapes political experiences and political events. I think that's a really rich perspective that you can bring. It does mean it can be there can be a sort of steep learning curve at the start of the degree, and so learning a new discipline is slightly like learning a new language, but what we find is within the first few weeks, students are all effectively on the same level and learning at the same pace with us. So not only would I say you can certainly come to study international relations with a background in architecture, but I think that actually it would be a really exciting way or perspective of approaching global politics and all kinds of different reasons. And I think that goes for just about any disciplinary background people have. I think, one of the things I always say to students is we experience politics isn't something that just happens when we decide it happens. We're experiencing it all the time. Some of you have been asking questions about visas and immigration regulations, right? We're talking about global politics there. We're talking about different nation states and the rules that they make for the flows of people moving in and out of their borders, right? So we're constantly experiencing global politics every day, every moment of our lives, whether we recognize it or not. And so the different experiences that we have, the different backgrounds that we have, are only going to enrich and inform our understanding of global politics, no matter how it is that we want to sort of study it or what questions it is we're asking of it. So I think, yeah, I think it's a really interesting way of approaching the discipline. And I'd encourage all of you, to think about your own backgrounds and your own experiences as people from different countries, as people with different educational backgrounds, and the kinds of original perspectives that you can bring to the study and especially to classroom discussion and informing each other's views and experiences and perspectives.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a great answer. I hope that answers your question, Naomi. Yeah, I think there's lots of, particularly in the UK at the moment, they're refurbishing our Parliament building, and I think there's a strong argument that maybe being in a more modern Parliament, like the rest of Europe, might change the perspective of some of the politicians here in the UK. So another question's just come in here. So yeah, sorry, it's asking about deadlines for the application. It varies a little bit on whether you need a visa to study in the UK and some other sort of personal things around your personal circumstances. But in simple terms, Mara, I would say that, or for all of you here, you really want to have your application submitted by the end of May. That then gives you sort of 3 months to prepare moving to the UK if you have to, or moving to London. And yeah, it's just nice to have it sort of out the way, and then you can start making some concrete plans, and it gives us enough time to prepare any visa documents or do any other checks that we need to. So I would say sort of end of May, but please do, if you're ready to apply, please apply now. Submit your documents, get it out the way. If you're still at university, you can then focus on completing your exams and your dissertation. And then we also just have a question here. I saw that the website mentioned there was a careers services for after graduation. Could we talk a bit more about that? What services do they offer? So just a bit in general terms, Andrea. So we have a careers and internships office, and it's quite a large office for a relatively small university, and they sort of work full time to source industry partnerships and work experience opportunities for our students. So you will, as Paul mentioned before about the sort of doing an internship at Richmond, you will have meetings with them and they will assist you in finding the internship in the field or the area that you want to work in, and they will assist you with sort of the practicalities of applying, application process, interview. We have a careers porthole as well, so that works as a jobs porthole for current students to find some sort of work just during the semester to help support them while they're studying. And it also works as a sort of graduate jobs porthole where we have jobs posted there that you can do as a graduate that will relate to your field of interest. But I think what's the really important thing to mention around this is that through your master's degree, then through whatever sort of area you want to specialize in, and then through doing an internship in that area and writing a research project dissertation on that area, I think you're going to have sort of a mini portfolio of skills and work that you will then be in a great position to find your sort of job in the area you want to, your dream job. And I think that's very much how the program's structured, and we have a lot of success in that regard in sort of setting students up to be in the area that they want to work in. And obviously Paul or your academic supervisor will help sort of advise you on that as well.
Yeah, if I can just add, I mean, there's a range of other ways in which we support students. So to stick with careers, one of the things that I think is unique because we're small and because myself and my colleagues will know a lot of the alumni quite well, not only will you have access to a very active alumni network of thousands of alumni, a lot of them in international relations and politics, who can network with you in various ways. It's a quite active alumni network. But also, we've been running a program for the last couple of years on the MA International Relations, where we've been doing an MA alumni mentoring scheme. So students that are interested, I would put you in touch with an alum from working in a field that you're interested in. You can have a Zoom call with them. Some people end up, emailing them, getting tips on various things, both their experience at Richmond and the progress through the degree, but also their experience where they were looking for work or how they found work after the degree. There are careers events. In fact, there's one happening a week from now, where alums are going to be talking about their career experiences in the international charity sector, diplomatic sector, public policy, and so on. So those are examples of the sorts of things and ways we can support you. And I think, again, they come from being small in the sense that there's a real community sort of feel, not just amongst students, not just in the relationship between students and faculty, but also amongst alumni. And that's a real sort of key, I think, thing in terms of careers and building and developing careers. I think more broadly, if I understand the question about services at the university, I mean, there's a wide range, whether we're talking, and if we stick to sort of extracurricular support, there's a really wide range of services. It's not, I mean, it's a small university. So things, again, I think are unique to Richmond in terms of that community element, but also in terms of the scope there is for you to really be at the center of things happening at the university. So this is why, again, I think we're really excited for highly motivated students that might start a new student society. If students are interested in a particular element of global politics, you can work with faculty to bring in international speakers or host a workshop or host a career event in, say, diplomacy. I think there's really a lot of opportunities for highly motivated students. And it really is a cliche to say, the more you put in, the more you get out of it. But I think that that's especially the case at a place like Richmond.
Yeah, 100%, and we see that a lot at the bachelor's level as well. Okay, everybody. I can't see any other questions. So Naomi, just to highlight that you don't. Oh, sorry, no, sorry. 1 second. Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so we'll just wait another minute or so for any last-minute questions to come in. But as mentioned, we will be sending you a copy of this presentation tomorrow morning. So if you do think of things then, please refer back to this and drop us an email. You've got the email address on the screen there now. So yeah, if you think of something over the weekend, next week, then yeah, just jot that address down and you can email us. You can also follow us on social media. So we've got some handles for you on the screen there. And yeah, I think that's it otherwise. Obviously, thank you for your time today, everybody. And I will be following up with you guys over email. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, please do.